So, welcome to another episode of In the Dugout. Today we've got Derek Clark from the Rangers Review on. How's it going, Derek?
Yeah, not bad, Kel. How's it going yourself?
Yeah, all right. We were just having a wee chat earlier on there about the Hearts game and then the Dortmund tie. So, I mean, we've got a big glamour tie to look forward to, which, I cannot wait for that game. So, I mean, I don't know what we'll sort of call this. This was sort of touted as our Christmas special.
We're going for it. We're going for that one.
I don't know. That was what the chat and the group was. So we'll call it the In the Dugout Christmas special. So, I mean, yeah, just to start off, Derek, I don't know if you just want to give the listeners just a wee bit of background about yourself and what you do and things like that.
Yeah, I feel like I should go and get my Santa costume and stick that on if it's the Christmas special.
As long as it's blue, that's fine.
So I work for the Rangers Review. I'm sure you've all seen it on online. Just launched in the summertime. We basically cover all things Rangers. We try to cover Rangers differently to how the so-called mainstream media are covering Rangers. So there's a lot of tactical pieces that we do. We've partnered with StatsBomb. So what we do is after each game, there's a lot of analysis. Big on XG and percentile stats and all that sort of stuff. So we try and look in depth at the sort of dynamics of the game and really dissect the Rangers performance that way. We've got big interviews as well with players that you don't necessarily hear about. So that's pretty good fun as well. For that every week. We've also got daily videos every morning. We've got a sort of daily briefing, we call it, where we come on and just talk for about 20 minutes just about the news of the day. So we've got that on YouTube, and it's going really well. Enjoying it. God, you're working on Rangers every single day. It's funny, my missus is you must run out of things to talk about. I'm like, you never run out of things to talk about when it comes to Rangers.
I was going to say, I mean, covering Rangers every day would be the dream of loads of people. I imagine actually going behind the curtain a wee bit, it's not quite as glamorous as people imagine it to be, but I imagine it's still great fun.
Yeah, Craig, it's a lot of work that I've never worked so much in my life. You'll never believe it, the amount of work that has to go into. I've come from a sort of radio background, so I'm learning every day with regards to writing pieces, and when you're attending press conferences, you're transcribing things, whereas before I'm just record it. It's an audio piece and it goes out on the radio and your job's done. But you're learning to get on your laptop and get all the words down and get it out there as quick as possible. Things like games, I've covered a number of games. And down south, I covered the Bolton games. I'm the commentator down here for Bolton. But when I come up do the occasional Rangers game, your work starts basically at the full-time whistle. So you need to get your player ratings out, and then you need to go down, speak to the manager and the player that they put up, and then transcribe that, and then stick out feature pieces after that, and then of course you get your StatsBomb data after that. So there's so much work that goes on after the game. It's funny, my dad usually stay up with my mum and dad when I go back up the roads, and he seems to think once we leave the game, Ibrox, and head back into the house, well, my work's done. Like, you've got no idea the sort of work that goes into this. He says, I actually don't. It's crazy, but yeah, it's good fun. I mean, like you say, Craig, you're talking about Rangers, so it's hard work, but it's enjoyable.
Right, have you made a mess of the player ratings at any point yet?
There's always somebody that disagrees with the ratings. I'm sure you disagreed. Was it Goldson? I think I gave Goldson a 6 at Easter Road recently.
I'm sure I disagreed with one of them quite vigorously. So
Doesn't sound like you, Craig.
No, I think Derek, I start from quite a negative position anyway. So I think we're going to go to every game in the half hour leading up to kick-off before we.
Well, saying that, I felt I was maybe a bit harsh giving Goldson a 6, but like I say, I cover the Bolton games down here, and the guy that covers them for the local paper, we covered. They were away at Fleetwood last week, and he was giving guys 3s. And I was like, oof, that's another level.
Have you ever given anyone a 1 or a 2 or anything?
No, I don't think so. I think I gave John Lundstrom a 4 or a 3. I think maybe a 3 for the time he came on. Well, never came on. He gets sent off. Remember the Alice game?
The game.
So I think he may have got a 3 that day. But apart from that, none spring to mind. But yeah, the player ratings, it divides opinion, doesn't it? It's hard when you're at the game and you're trying to keep an eye on things. Sometimes you miss things, but it's good fun at the end of the day.
Absolutely, but so it's great to hear a bit about sort of your background and your work there. But I'll pass over to Kyle for the first question as we get to know a bit about you as a Rangers fan, which probably a side of you that not many people on the internet have heard about before, considering your sort of professional capacity and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, as always, the first question, and we've had quite a few interesting answers to this, haven't we, Craig? Is simply what got you into Rangers? You know, we've had people talking about their brothers, their dads, their uncles, their aunties, all sorts of stuff. We've had somebody flipped a coin
Wow.
between Rangers and Celtic, and that's how it started. So, yeah, what was it that got you into Rangers, Derek?
Yeah, I think like most, it was sort of family, isn't it? You're just born a Rangers supporter. My dad was a big supporter. He went to all the games back in the day, and his dad, my granddad, was a fanatic as well. He went everywhere. So much so there's a famous story in their family where he went to games. He wouldn't come back for days on end. It was just no mobile phones back then. You know what I mean? So you're coming in and, where were you? Just at the Rangers game and all that, but it's a different world back then to what it is now. Yeah. But my dad told me stories where he was getting into Rangers and his dad would take him to the pub and just give him sort of 50p and stand outside for about 4 hours, and then he'd come out and then see him after the game, sort of thing. It was crazy, but I had Rangers baby grows and all that sort of stuff, so it was in the family. I was never going to be a Celtic supporter, put it that way. My mum's not really into football is in a great deal, although she goes along to the games with my dad. They've both got season tickets now, and they just it's just pretty much a day out for them where they go out and they make a day of it in Glasgow and such likes. But for me, I was from a very early age. I think the first sort of game I recall going to must have been the 92-93 season. I think I've got very hazy memories, but I remember running about in, like I say, Rangers baby grows and Rangers strips from an early age. So I think it was just that it was always good. You're always going to be a Rangers supporter, but it's weird. I've got a wee brother and he's not really into football, which is a bit bizarre because my dad's a right fanatic, but he never acquired the taste for football, which is a strange one. But there you go, yeah.
So were you the type of guy that, you know, was cutting out pictures in the Rangers news and sticking them at the front of your jotters and all that sort of stuff? Or were you a bit more subtle to it than that? Are you wearing your scarf into school and all that? Or
I think the colours were banned in my primary school. I don't think you could Rangers and Celtic colours were banned. You could come in with a Stenhouse-Muir strip on and nobody would bat an eyelid. But Rangers and Celtic was like you get sent home and get told to change if you come in with one of their jerseys. In fact, some boys did come in with Old Firm tops and they get told to turn them inside out, which I've never fully understood what that was all about.
What's the point in that? I wonder what strip he's wearing there.
So that was a strange one. But the wallpaper, you name it. Growing up, I had the Rangers tartan wallpaper, the border and all that. It was everything. It was scarves, you name it, strips. I was a fanatic from a very early age. I think the first strip I sort of had was the yellow Andy Gorham goalie jersey for the 92-93 season. I can remember cutting about in that. There's home video footage of me hitting on a Andy Gorham at 6 years old, so that's quite funny. But yeah, just from an early age, I had all the wallpaper and all that, and you name it, just like every other Rangers fan growing up.
It's interesting you had a goalie top. I don't think I've ever owned a goalie top. It seems like occasionally you just meet someone and they're like, yeah. When I was between ages of like 6 and 10, I had like 5 goalie tops.
It's weird that I actually played as a goalie as a youngster. I fancied myself as a bit of a goalie. I played for the school team and all that. So I had that yellow jersey. I came home one day and I had. My mum got me the Scotland goalie jersey for I think 94-95. It's a white thing and it had a crazy pattern on it. It was, you see them now retailing for like £200 It's crazy.
Yeah.
But back then it was an absolute beauty. But I had loads of goalie tops. I had Liverpool goalie tops, everything. It was a bit strange really that way. But I had other tops as well. But that was the first one I had, that yellow one.
Yeah, well, if you're ever back in Glasgow, then we always need a five-a-side goalie, so you know where to find us.
Yeah.
So what was you mentioned obviously was it 94, 95 there you had the top. Was that around the time of your first game? When was your first game? What are your memories of it?
Yeah, it's hazy. I think I seem to recall Rangers played Dumbarton 92, 93, and I think that was my first game. I think they beat them 5-0 in the League Cup or something like that. I can't remember too much about it, but I do remember the tail end of that season going to games when the league had already been won against the likes of Dundee, Partick Thistle. I'm sure they played Hibs at Ibrox as well. And that's when Walter Smith used to play the boys you'd never seen all season, because the league was wrapped up and the players were out in the piss celebrating. So it was a chance for the likes of David Hagan, God rest his soul, and Stephen Watson and all that to get a game. Neil Murray and that get a run out. So I remember looking at those games. I think David Hagan was pretty impressive in some of those games, netted a few goals as well. But those are the first sort of games I remember going to, the Partick Thistle, Dundee sort of games at the end of that season. Then the 93-94 season wasn't a classic, but I remember going to a few games then as well. I vividly remember watching Gordon Dury. I know they brought him in from Spurs and he was doing the business. That was one of the few highlights that season. I think most of the squad had a bit of a hangover from the year before. But that's the sort of first sort of memories. And you remember, I just remember going with my friend Ali Bain, who most of you will know on Twitter as well, is a coach over in the United States now. But me and him used to go over, and my dad or his dad would take us over, and he would say, "Oh, I can see Ibrox. Can you see it?" And you're trying to peer out the car window to see where is it? So it was just an exciting time to be alive, I think, back then, and going to see Rangers for the first time. I mean, it was a magical experience.
Absolutely. I mean, you're like us. I guess I'm not going to be ageist here, but you're slightly older than us. But you grew up in the 9 in a row kind of era.
Spoiled.
Yeah, absolutely spoiled. So it was obviously great fun going to. I think my first game was 95. I think my first game was, but it was great fun seeing those players in the flesh and just knowing you were going to win, no matter what, you knew you were going to win. And I guess it's been interesting the past 8-9 years having that adjustment period as to where we were and now where we've got to now, I guess. But how did you cope with that side of that change, I guess, to mindset? Were you on board from the start, or did you struggle to watch us at times?
Well, growing up, I remember the defeats because they were so few and far between. So I remember when Hearts were 3-0 up at half time, and my uncle, who's a big Hearts fan, telling me this, and just started laughing like you haven't, and then seeing it with your own eyes, thinking this isn't right. What's going on here? I remember they get beat at Tynecastle. I remember they get beat at Pittodrie 3-0 and they played a youth team. But it was very rare. Dundee United is another one at Ibrox that springs to mind. But it was few and far between defeats growing up in the 9 in a row era. But then moving on, I remember when they lost the league that first time that I was made aware that when we went for the 10 in a row. Of course, they won in 88, but I was only 2 by then, so you don't remember anything by then. But when they lost 10 in a row, you're thinking, this is my first experience of Rangers coming second, and Celtic being the top dogs. It felt bizarre, especially when Rangers had beat them both in the league and the Scottish Cup just a few weeks earlier. You're thinking, right, that's them, they'll go on and win the 10 in a row now. But from then on, Advocat comes in, of course, and he has 2 great seasons. Martin O'Neill comes in, and it's more of a level playing field. But it was strange transitioning from a period of time where you're dining out on success year on year. It's expected just to see the players and the manager to lift trophy after trophy to a point in time where you think, oh, this is not the norm. And I think at the time, my dad said that it didn't used to be like this. He always referenced the early 80s as being a barren time for the football club and going to follow them. And not just that, I mean, the attendances were were paltry back then, and
Yeah,
nobody was turning up.
it was all something my granddad spoke about as well. He's like, you turn up to Ibrox and there would be like 10,000 people there to watch the game and stuff like that. It was like, it was mental. Just like so much space, and it was that bad.
Even when you look at when the Spivs were in charge and what have you, the fans were still coming out in their droves, weren't they, to support the team. So it's not something it's hard to sort of compute that. And when you see, obviously, when they went down to the third division at the time, and even when I speak to players back then that were played there, and they can't quite get over how many supporters were in the ground following them. So it's certainly it's a different world back then to the early 80s. It's changed days, that's for sure. And the supporters deserve great credit, I think, for the way they've stuck by the team in recent years.
No, that's great in terms of that, is because I don't know what to think about it. I mean, if you're a professional footballer, and you must be going, there's a hedge over there and that. What is happening? I've come to play for Rangers, and you go on to that. But no, the next question that we've kind of got, and I don't know if you want to split this into maybe two parts or whatever, but it's what's your typical match day routine? I don't know if you want to talk about, going there as a journalist and then maybe going there as a fan. Just, do you go for a wee pint before the game? If you're going as a fan and, enjoy it and soak it all in, are you there like 40 minutes before watching the team's training, or what do you do? Are you Subway loyal? Or?
Well, as a fan, I mean, with my job down here covering Bolton, and I've done other games for different radio stations, so it's always been difficult to get up as a fan to cover games. But I went to the occasional Old Firm game with my dad at times, and again, like, you take my mum out, it'll sort of make a day of it, where we'll either get the train in or he'll drive in, maybe go for something to eat beforehand, then walk up. He usually likes to go into the Loudon, which has been a favourite haunt of his, going in there for some pre-match aperitifs before heading over to the game. So that's usually if you're going as a fan, what we normally do. And then afterwards, heading off, maybe go back into Glasgow for a few before getting the train back. They stay in Hamilton, so heading back that way. So that's, as a fan, probably what we would normally do. Is as journalists, since probably the summer when I've come up and worked at games, I'll either drive up myself or I'll get the train up. I'm quite fortunate there's a train from Warrington that goes straight up to Glasgow Central, so it's quite good. Although the last time I tried to get up last week and I got as far as Preston, and then they went, the trains are off. It was just chaos. With signalling problems and all that sort of stuff. So I often just like driving up myself, and it's a straight road up the M6, M74, and then you get in just about an hour with the COVID rules and all that. You get in about an hour before the game. You sign in and you get up to the press, up to the gantry, and you just get yourself settled before the game. Then obviously when you're doing the player ratings, you've got one eye on the game and you try to type as well. So that's something I've sort of learned to do, because you're trying not to miss anything when you're typing away. So that's a skill in itself. You're often asking somebody, what happened there? Did he hit that shot or whatever? Or folk will be asking you, because their heads are down in their laptops and what have you. So that's what happens. Full time, of course, you go down into the press room for the press conference with the manager and whatever player that's put up, and then you do your piece after that. You get your player ratings out. You transcribe the press conference, and you write a wee colour piece, what we call it, a wee opinion piece on the game, and that's pretty much it. So it's quite full on when you're covering the game. There's times, of course, when perhaps they're playing in Europe and you're doing the game from the comfort of your own home, which I'm a fan of at times. But I tell you, I was at the Brøndby game recently there as a fan, which was good. I like going away now and again if I can, and doing that sort of stuff, and exploring cities and all that sort of stuff. So I went over with my dad and we thoroughly enjoyed it. Although we're in the home end, and I wouldn't recommend that. I don't think I would do that again.
It was a bit sketchy.
It was. Well, there was a guy, of course, they were checking tickets. Luckily, I've got a friend that works over in Copenhagen, and his company had tickets for the game, so we're quite lucky in that respect. And we got in, but the security on the just at the gate asked the boy behind me, English or Danish, and he just pointed to me and went, that's my brother, that's my brother, and just dived in. And managed to get in. He's just a wee guy from Glasgow, but he somehow managed to get in. I must have looked Scandinavian, but I get in, no bother. But once we were in there, the Brøndby crowd is something else. There's some atmosphere in there, that's for sure. But you didn't want to say a word in case you get rumbled and get papped out, because there was a bit of trouble in the ground at the time. So it was one of those ones. Just keep your head down and watch the game.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think as a fan base, we are quite unique in that sense, because watching these games where we go away, even a Hearts game there at the weekend, if you see there was a shot of Morelos celebrating, there's two boys sitting in the time castle, pretty pleased with themselves. But I know. Just another question that we kind of always ask about this, and this is one of the big questions we've gotten in the dugout, is if you're at Ibrox as a fan, as a supporter, when you're leaving Ibrox, do you tap or do you not tap? And if you're a tapper, why do you tap?
I don't know if I've ever tapped, to be honest, but I know of tappers.
Yeah.
I think my dad might actually tap on occasion, but I don't know if I've tapped or if I'm aware that I've ever tapped. But tapping does go on. That is a thing.
Yeah.
It's just why? It'll just be it's just a sort of, I don't know if it's one of those things where you need to do it, and if you do it, I don't know, because a lot of folk do it when they leave, don't they?
Yeah.
So it's not as if you're doing it for a bit of luck going into the game, thinking I need to do it, and then Rangers might have a positive result, sort of thing. So I don't know why people do it. I think it's just. I think it's just it's a wall, and folks seen people doing it, and they went, "Oh, I'll just fancy doing it." But I don't think there's any sort of sort of logic behind it or anything like that.
It was one of the first things that I think it was the very first episode of In the Dugout, and we asked the question. We actually thought, why is anyone doing this? There's no logic to it, and we've got season tickets in the club deck, and every time say 6 or 7 out of 10 people that walk through that door, they all jump up and hit the roof before as they go past. It's why? It's there's no logic to it. And then I think we're at the stage where we've got more people who do tap than don't tap on the podcast so far. But they've all had a different reason as to why they do it. So I mean, it still doesn't make sense that Kyle's tried it. Kyle missed the first time he tried it. He takes a wee run and jump these days to try and get it.
Need somebody to give you a wee punty up.
That's it. I'm going to go on your shoulders next time doing
it. Just a question, going back to when you're talking about your sort of match day routine, when you're there working, obviously you get to speak to the manager after each game. When you were, I guess, when you first sort of started in your new role, it would have been Gerrard that was the manager at that point. Was it intimidating being around him, or was it just as that I've heard people say he's got an aura around him kind of thing, that it was just kind of, you knew when he wasn't happy with you and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, well, I was in a press conference sort of one-on-one. I think because of COVID, they were all done on Zoom, but I was on a couple of Zoom pressers with him, and he did take down one or two journalists. Our very own Joshua Barry got it, where he asked a question and he sort of sniped back. And he had to explain himself, but his question was spot on. But it's just the Gerrard sort of, almost the Gerrard stare and making you, putting you on your spot sort of thing. I don't think he means any malice by it. I just think that's the sort of guy that he is. But he certainly has that about him. Of course, the stature with what he's done in the game, and he certainly has that presence. I've noticed with Van Bronckhorst, he just seems a bit more mellow. I wouldn't say friendly, but it seems like a more relaxed environment. Subconsciously, I feel that, and you maybe feel that's what the players have needed recently. Maybe it's been a bit too intense with Gerrard after 3.5 years, and they've just needed that change. The players just look more relaxed, don't they? And maybe that's what Van Bronckhorst has given them as well, just a bit of a license just to express themselves a little bit. Whereas, I mean, Gerrard, he's doing well at Aston Villa, of course, but I think every manager runs their course. But certainly you did feel that he has that. I wouldn't say it's similar to what Walter Smith had, because it's been press conferences when he's walked in and he said everyone just shuts up and all eyes are on him, sort of thing. He was the man. But Gerrard, it was very similar, I would say.
It's interesting because I'd agree with you. I think Van Bronckhorst, I think from the moment he's walked in, it's been everything's just felt like everyone's just breathed out a little and just like, the shoulders aren't quite as tense and all that sort of stuff, and people aren't scared on the ball. It felt like at the start of the season they were scared to do something wrong on the ball, whereas now everything seems a bit more relaxed and we're on a good run, which always helps. I imagine if he'd lost one or two of these games so far, then it might have been a slightly different. There'd have been concerns, no doubt, with the run of fixtures that they had to go on the away games, and you think to yourself, especially after that League Cup semi defeat, you think Rangers face a tough run of fixtures here. Can these players deliver? But he's so far done miraculously well. It over exceeded the expectations I had, that's for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll head back to the questions. We're kind of moving on to sort of favourite moments that you've had personally watching Rangers. So first one is favourite goal. Now, when we started this, we were like, everyone will have a favourite goal, everyone will have a favourite match, and all that sort of stuff. So it turned out that it's really hard to narrow it down. So we give everyone a top three. So we let people narrow it down to a top three, but you do have to specify your favourite one that you've seen.
Is that live in the flesh?
Let's go for live in the flesh. Yeah.
Best goal. I don't know if it's my favourite, but best goal I've ever seen is Tavernier's volley against Peterhead in that Cup final. It was just ridiculous. On the volley, I think from about 25 yards, and just smashed into the top corner and burst the net pretty much. I know it's the game itself. You think the calibre of the game, it's not exactly a high-profile game, but it was one of those goals that just takes your breath away, sort of thing. You think, wow, he's just done that. Yeah. It was a phenomenal strike. Another one, but probably similar, was Barry Mackay's against Celtic in that League Cup semi-final. Another one when he popped it into the top corner. It was funny. I was in a working capacity there at the time. I was sitting alongside Alan Ruff, and we were just having a bit of a noise up during the game because he's obviously a big Celtic fan. I think Rangers won a throw-in just seconds prior to that, but it was a Celtic throw. And Alan Ruff's giving it to me. Rangers better no score for this. That's a Celtic throw-in. And I was I says, I would love it if they scored for this. And then 2 seconds later, Barry Mackay just launched into the top corner, and I'm noising them up. He's like, I don't believe it. What's going on here? Yeah. So that was quite comical.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised. I actually thought, I don't know why I thought this. I've clearly not been paying attention to my Alan Ruff trivia, but I thought he was a Partick Thistle fan. So there you go.
He's a Partick Thistle legend, of course, isn't he? He's a big Thistle fan as well. But he's got Celtic tendencies as well. He's forgot his Celtic scarf that day. That's the only thing missing from that day. That certainly wanted Celtic to win, but that was a funny moment from that game. And it was I think that the result as well sort of tipped it up a little notch as well. But it was a sublime strike. But that and Tavernier's goals really are ones that sort of stick out for me. And watching them live, you're thinking, wow, these are phenomenal strikes.
Are there any goals that? And I realise I'm doing this off the top of your head, so if you don't have an answer, that's absolutely fine. Are there any goals that you've seen an opposition team score and you've just thought, wow? I think the one that springs to mind for me, and it seems to get mentioned every episode of this podcast, that Benzema for Lyon against us at Ibrox was an unreal strike.
I was at that game actually, and he did a number on Rangers that night. There's one I forgot actually. I was there when Rangers scored it, and it's quite topical given the draw against Dortmund. I was there that night. They beat them 2-0 at Ibrox, and they scored that amazing team goal.
I actually watched that earlier on today. It was Rod Wallace finished off.
Yeah, it was an absolute beauty. But at the time, that's what Advocaat's team done, sort of thing. You don't really take it in at the time. You just think, oh, this is just Rangers playing how we expect them to play. But yeah, certainly Benzema that night, Leon Cape Town was different class, and that long range strike was a beauty. At the time, you're leaving that game thinking you're gutted, you're disappointed. Especially like Dartsville missed a sitter as well at a crucial point. If he scores that, it's a different game. But nobody knew back then that Rangers would make it all the way to Manchester, didn't they? So it was a blessing in disguise, that defeat. But yeah, Benzema's goal is certainly up there. I'm just trying to think if there's any others that sort of spring to mind. Not off the top of my head.
The boy from Braga last 2 seasons ago.
That was a beauty.
When he absolutely nailed it off the bar, and then that was a good one. But I suppose it's a Rangers podcast, isn't it?
I know, why are you talking about this scored against? just to edit this bit out is fine. Well, I suppose that brings us on to the next sort of question is your favourite players. We break this down into sort of your top 3 players you've ever seen playing at Ibrox. And then we've got opposition players, and Benzema's always mentioned in that list, isn't he?
Benzema and Riquelme. The guys that are always mentioned.
Yeah, they are different class, weren't they?
Yeah.
So it's a strange. Everyone, me growing up, probably Laudrup's up there. You'd have to say, guy was just different class. And I think unfairly, every sort of Rangers wingers judged against him these days. You're thinking, wingers have bad games in the main. Ryan Laudrup really didn't. The guy was just a level above. But he was sensational. Gascoigne, I've seen Gascoigne a few times. The League Cup final against Hearts. He was world class. He won the game on his own pretty much. When they won 4-3 at Parkhead, I remember watching that. I think, this guy's phenomenal. Apart from that, I was a sort of loved Alberts. Loved watching him play. Just a colossus a player. And I like cult heroes as well. I like Gabriel Amato. I loved him. I know he sort of split opinion amongst the fan base at times. Maybe with regards to his work rate and what have you, but just for pure skill and getting you off your seat, he was ridiculous at times. And in the same sort of breath, Andre Kanchelskis for me, I know he was perhaps past his best when he joined Rangers, but I remember when Advocat joined, and it seemed like Rangers were signing players for fun. It was a new player every day, and I was over in Florida at the time, and one of those ones where you picked up a paper and I seen Kanchelskis on the front and the Rangers wallpaper, and I thought, what's going on here? Andre Kanchelskis, couldn't believe it. But for the outlay, I don't think it was value for money, but some of the sublime bits of skill the guy could produce, and his pace was ridiculous at times. It was really good. So those players sort of spring to mind. More recently, when El Hadj Diouf signed for Rangers, it's fair to say that split opinion, but I was over the moon when Rangers signed him because I'd loved that guy since the 2002 World Cup when he played for Senegal, and he sort of came to everybody's mind. I remember him they played Uruguay just on the stroke of half time. I think they were beating them 2-0 or something, and he decided just to take the piss out the Uruguay bench by playing keepy-ups right in front of them. Yeah. It sparked a melee. Everybody was going bananas. And from that point, like, this guy's tremendous. So when Rangers got him, and of course, he had his episode when he was at Celtic Park, didn't he? When he was at Liverpool. So it seemed to upset a few folk when he came up to Rangers. But I thought he'd be a terrific signing, and they proved to be. Yeah. So he never really done much in terms of output. Of course, I think that the headed goal against Sporting Lisbon comes to mind. But apart from that, not much else. But for me, just as a character and as a player, it was great to see him in a Rangers jersey. I remember going to Ibrox after we won that league, and him and Vladimir Weiss were the two guys that were just lapping that up. Do you remember that, Craig? Were you there with me? And he was just standing about with his arms out, holding his up. It was brilliant. There's an argument for that being the sort of biggest sort of shithousing signing ever in football, because Walter Smith 100% brought him in to wind them up, and it worked magnificently. But and so bringing us on to that, what's your sort of top opposition players you've seen play at Ibrox? You know, it could be in the flesh or just generally. It's a difficult one. Like I say, you don't normally notice the opposition players unless they're a level above, like your Benzemas and your the Quelmies and that sort of thing. And remember the boy at Stuttgart was some player, the boy up front. I can't mind his name.
Mario Gomez.
What was that?
Mario Gomez.
Aye, I thought he was a player. I think he scored that night. They played Rangers. He looked a right good player. But apart from that, I'm just thinking recently if I've seen anybody, it's coming through the leagues. You don't really pick anybody if you're like still in Albion or Elgin City, do you? It's
I mean,
you struggle.
Maybe Kai Havertz might be one to chuck into that discussion, because I bet that Leverkusen game that we were at, he was unbelievable in that game, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was, as you said, he was different class. And got his move to Chelsea from it.
Yeah. And even you don't like to say it, but when Celtic came to town, when they were obviously, of course, much better than Rangers, you knew guys like Odsonne Edouard and Moussa Dembele were a level above as well. So they were frightening compared to players on the pitch at that time. But apart from that, there's none that really spring to mind. Michael Chopra maybe for Alloa Athletic, which was
well, there's something.
How Alloa Athletic managed to get him on their books is beyond me. But one of the weird and wonderful transfers that come about every so often.
Yeah, Derek, I'm just shocked you went down the Celtic route there. Everyone else has avoided that, so I'm just shocked you're going down now.
I know. He never really done much the other night, right enough, Dembele, did he, when he was up against a decent backline? But he did cause a bit of damage when he was going up against the likes of Rob Kiernan and the likes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I'm just moving on. He's moving swiftly on. So, from players to games, I guess we've spoken about your first game so earlier on the podcast. Have you got a favourite game that you've been to? Obviously, you mentioned the Dortmund game there, which I imagine is pretty high ranking up there. But have you got a favourite game that you've been to?
That League Cup final at Parkhead was brilliant. Had everything, and very much like the game recently. Hearts put so much into the game themselves. I mean, it was one end to another. They had Neil McCann on their team, so that was causing Rangers a few issues. That game springs to mind. The game at Hampden I mentioned earlier, that League Cup semi-final, as a standalone game was an absolute cracker, of course. I think the final sort of soured the game a little bit afterwards, which was unfortunate to be at as well, which wasn't the best. In terms of games at Ibrox, you're right, that Dortmund game was a beauty, but at the time, I think that maybe the outcome sort of sours that. When you go out over there, you lose a goal, they'll sort of last kick the ball in the 90 minutes, you go out on penalty kicks, which was a bit of a gutter, to be honest. Other games that spring to mind, the Porto game in 2005. I've never experienced noise like that. Ibrox was absolutely bouncing, especially when Kyriakos scored the winner. It was bonkers. That Stuttgart game, I think that was the same. Sure, was that the same campaign? I'm not quite sure, where they came from behind. I think Gomez had scored for them, and then was it Charlie Adams scored, and I think Dartsville scored a penalty or something like that.
That would do it a couple of years later, actually, because that would be 2007.
So that's another one that springs to mind, where it was more so the atmosphere more than anything else, where everybody was on the same sort of wavelength, and Ibrox was just rocking that night. So those games, the Champions League nights, are real special ones. Sort of you don't forget, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I think I was talking to a friend in work the other day, and it was the game that he said was one of his favourite games, and I've not very few people mention it, considering how big a win it was, I suppose. But see, we won the League Cup final with 9 men. Like, very few people mention it at all, and you're like, actually, that was absolutely classic. I remember being there with my granddad, and you're just like, was it Danny Wilson gets sent off, and then Kevin Thompson gets sent off, and you're like, what is going on? How are we going to get out of this? And Kenny Miller nods it in from about 17, 18 yards out, and everyone just went mental against St Mirren.
I loved Walter in that day, because he came. Of course, Ali took the team for the cup games, and Walter obviously just went, right, enough's enough. I'm taking charge here, and it was like a one-man mission, wasn't it? And you saw how much it meant to him, and it was when Miller stuck that header away, it was some goal as well. To be the cross and the header was sublime. That was something else. And one I forgot actually, that went to the League Cup final, the Old Firm one, when I think it was at Caniggia and Lovenkrands scored early, and then I think Larsson pulled one back, and then Hartson missed a penalty in the last minute or something like that. So that was that one. That's one that sort of is high up there, just for of any Old Firm wins good as well. And comedic levels where Hartson missing a penalty was always good. So that's one that ranks high as well.
It's a shocking penalty as well, wasn't
it was really bad, wasn't it?
Well, the next question is involving strips and your favourite strips. You've already given us a wee insight onto it. I think we might have another goalie nerd on this one, Derek.
No, we have had a few Andy Gorham ones already on the podcast. Has been a favourite of strips, but like I said, it's a bit left field. Is that your man that buys strips at all, or are you?
You know what? I've got a bit of a problem sometimes. I've not bought a jersey now for a wee while, but with the boom and retro shirts and all that, I've got so many tucked away in drawers that I've tried to buy all the ones I had as a kid. Yeah. But it costs an absolute fortune now, the strips that you buy. But your favourite ones, that goalie jersey, I had the white jersey that season as well, which was just that's the 92, 93, 93, 94 strips is what Rangers strips should be. The Adidas ones, absolute class. So I had them. When they brought the Nike, I had the two Nike ones that came out. I thought the Nike kits were cracking as well. Not so much the third one they brought out. I think that wasn't the best, but those were good. I think I don't think they've had decent tops from then on. I think, but I think the 90s really were
peak football kit, wasn't it?
Aye, nothing beats it. I don't know if that's because that's when I was growing up and everything seemed amazing back then, and Rangers were amazing. But I think the strips just were something else. I think nowadays they're very samey, very templatey. Every strip's more or less the same. I know a lot of clubs are now trying to go down the sort of retro look with their new jerseys, and some pull them off, some don't. But for me, the 92, 93 jerseys was my favourite. But I don't know, what about you guys? What's your favourite strips?
You're getting asked a question.
I know. The first man to ask us a question. No one's turned their background in us yet. So we were talking about strip squatting. I suppose when it goes out, it'll be last week's podcast with Patrick. And it was funny, we were talking about strips that just you instantly just think of a player when you think of a strip. And actually, I don't know if it's the third strip you were talking about that you just completely discarded.
Yes, that was
the red Nike kit with Q and Swagger on it. I was like, that one reminds me of Stefan Givash for some reason. Absolutely no idea. Like, no one ever speaks of him as being a Rangers player, but I think he like slid in for a tap in at Pittodrie or something like that, and ever since it's been a favourite of mine. But I think that sort of 2000-2001 Nike kit with Michael Moles, when he was on fire, that one was absolutely class. I think the one before that is sort of 97, 98, 99 kit with McEwen's Swagger and the red stripes, always a favourite. And then, to be fair, I was a big fan of the kit in the third division.
I tell you, that is a beauty. It's just a shame it was war in that division, I think, because that is an absolute all-time classic. I'm a big fan of no stars. I know it's maybe controversial, but I think the stars should have been brought up. When was it? 2004-05 or something like that. They brought out the stars. It should have been a one-seasoner for me.
I agree with that.
It just cheapened the badge for many a year. So I was pleased when they took it away for the jersey this year, and hopefully they continue in that vein. It should just be the crest, and that's it for me. That sounds like Rangers da speak, but that's what I think about the stars gate.
What about you, Kyle? Because you own about every Castor bit of kit going. So what about you?
I like, I like a bit of Castor gear, man. But I don't know. I'm probably similar to you in terms of just because it was the first kit I ever got was the 98 one, that McEwen's Nike with the red stripe on it. I mean,
yeah,
just that for me, I remember being quite young, and McCoist must have scored a few days or something like that before it, and my dad took me up to the JJB up in Kingsgate in East Kilbride, and we went in and bought a strip, and I think I never took it off for the rest of that year, maybe. So yeah, a strip. But I totally agree with what you said, Derek. I think all the strips in the 90s, that was peak football kit. I mean, because I was watching that Leon game, and I've never heard commentators mention how bogging a strip is before. Like, they kept mentioning how disgusting that Leon kit was. It's a shocker, that kit.
Oh, the one the other night.
I'm going to step my head above the parapet here and say I quite liked it.
It didn't really offend me that much. To be fair, I was in a
Right, so it turns out Kyle's internet has well and truly given up the ghost now. He's been on, he's been off, he's been on, he's been off, and now we're just going to fire ahead with the last question without him, Derek. So I guess you've been living down south for a while now. You cover games, Bolton games for the radio side of things. You get to do some Rangers games here and there. But what's your best story or your best place of somewhere you've watched Rangers where it's not been at Ibrox?
Usually when I'm watching Rangers from down here, I just go to a local pub and watch it. The missus makes sure if Rangers are playing, especially early kickoffs, often you find them at 12 o'clock. So it's my job to find a watering hole somewhere that's showing the Rangers game. Now, you need to make sure there's no English games taking place at that time as well. There has been times there has been, thankfully, more often than not, Rangers play, and then you'll find Super Sunday after full time. That was the case when we watched the recent game against Hearts, but it hasn't been unknown for me to argue my case for the TV to be switched on to the Rangers game as opposed to anything else. I remember I used to live in Leeds for a couple of years, and I was in the local pub there, and Rangers were playing Accies. I asked the bar, I think I asked the barman to put the Rangers and Hamilton game on, and you should see the look of the locals that were in the pub. Like, why are we watching Rangers? Who are they playing? Hamilton Accies? What is this? And there was just fury.
That's a terrible Yorkshire accent, by the way. I mean, I've been quite a bit. That was absolutely shocking.
There was just, I don't do them justice, but there was fury. There's like, just sit down and enjoy the game. Watch a real football team play here. So that I remember that sort of springs to mind. And covering a lot of games down here for the radio, it's not uncommon to have to see me with my phone on Rangers TV or something just at the side, just to keep one eye on events up north and see how, just to keep an eye on, see how Rangers are doing. I remember covering games when being at Carrow Road, and I was covering an Old Firm game, I'm sure. Well, I say covering, just keeping an eye on things, and you get rather animated in the press box when you see events happening at Ibrox, that's for sure. But you always try and keep an eye on things, even when you're living down here. You always try and watch Rangers at just whenever you can. Of course, working it makes it a wee bit difficult, and covering Bolton, of course, the local journalists and the press guys know I'm a Rangers supporter, so they've been known to wind me up a few times. There's an old guy that works for BBC Manchester who was covering the game recently, and in the middle of the game, he was just there on a jolly, and he brought up a wee bit of paper and he gave me it when I was doing my commentary, and it was Rangers B, I think 1, Cove Rangers 5 or something. He thought that was the proper Rangers. He thought they would just wind me up and just give me that, and I was like, thanks, Jack, for the little score update there, but that's not the real Rangers team.
I couldn't care less.
But just we daft stuff like that. But yeah, I always try and keep an eye on things even when I'm living down south, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to an Alfredo Morelos goal being commentated on when you're meant to be commentating on Bolton. So
it's easily done.
Absolutely. So, well, thank you very much for your time, Derek. I don't know, do you want to, this is our Christmas special, I think, as Kyle labelled it at the start. Do you want to let people know where they can find yourself and your content over the Christmas period?
Yeah, like I say, working for the Rangers Review, you can find us at rangersreview.co.uk. We're on Twitter at rangersreview55. You can find us on there, and also on Facebook, and we're on YouTube as well. Like I said earlier on, we've got daily videos every morning from around about 9:30. So you can go over there and subscribe if you like the content. Yeah, I just sort of urge you to go over and have a look at the sort of stuff we do. We try and cover Rangers differently to what others are doing. So a lot of, I've already mentioned, of course, a lot of statistics, XG and all that. It's certainly been an education for me, certainly in the last few months, that's for sure. A crash course in possession charts and percentiles and all that sort of stuff. So it's been fascinating stuff. So yeah, rangersreview.co.uk. So I certainly urge you to go along there and have a wee look at the stuff that we carry out.
That's great. Thank you very much, Derek. And I guess thank you very much, everyone, for listening. This is the last episode before we head into 2022. So I hope everyone has a great Christmas, and we look forward to doing more episodes of In the Dugout as January kicks in. See you then. Bye.